Hello and welcome to the Herald's Horn episode 47. This episode is sponsored by Card Conduit. On this one, Emma and I are going to be chatting about, as always, a range of topics. There's some really slick, new, cool Secret Lairs that I love. We have a Spotlight Series event coming up that Emma and I hope the winner will use great use of the special prize for. And a great Magic the Gathering artist is also retiring, at least temporarily. That and more. Without any further ado, let's get into the episode. Hello, it's time for the Herald's Horn, part of the One Shot Network. My name is Cal Jones, and today I am joined by the wonderful Emma. Say hello, Emma.
I saw some ducklings today.
We have a new bit. We officially have a new bit for Emma. What was up with those ducklings? Where were they?
So I live by a river outside, like near my apartment. There's a river, and I went to grab some groceries earlier, and I just saw some ducklings just like swimming along the river with the mother duck, and it was very cute, and they were cheeping away.
That does sound extremely pleasant, and I'm glad that you got to experience that during your day. Let's run the song. And welcome back. As always, we are going to jump directly into the news, but first we want to take a second to thank those of you over on Patreon who help support the show. If you enjoy the show, consider supporting us over on the beloved platform Patreon. We're going to shout out our first chair patrons, Baldrald. Thank you very much, Baldrald, as ever. If you support us on Patreon, you can get more exclusive content and even see Emma talking about the weather.
Just tying into my roots of being British.
All right, it's time to move on to our very first news headline here, and it is a bit of a sad one. Over the weekend, one of the true icons of the Magic art game, John Avon, announced that he is retiring, at least partially and hopefully temporarily, at least for 1 year from commercial art. But the vibe I got is pretty much that, like, it very well may be permanent. He has, if you have ever seen him at an event, if you followed him on social media, he's been pretty outspoken with the fact that he does have several fairly debilitating physical conditions that does make it harder for him to travel, harder for him to do art, all of that kind of stuff. And apparently those have only gotten worse and worse and worse, along with, I think, and this is like the most understandable thing ever, increased mental pressure on himself to continue doing his next piece for Magic or for other clients, like one step better, do one thing better, make it better and better and better every time, which when you have created some of the most iconic art for the game, and started working for Magic in 1996 on Mirage and have been doing it ever since. It's kind of hard to do that.
It's quite a stint.
Mm-hmm. He's John Avon, I think, is like he's in my mind one of the greats, and part of that is just because he's been at it for so long. He does really good art, but
also just really consistent.
Yes, definitely. He's been very good, very consistently. Emma, I've got to ask you a question on the spot. Do you have a favorite John Avon art? I know that I do, so I can go first because I'm putting you on the spot.
I know what mine is. Mine is the Invasion Plains.
Oh, Invasion Plains?
It's the one with the wheatgrass.
Sure.
People might know it from, I think Dom and I remastered, reprinted them not too long ago. But the original wheatgrass plains is really nice. He's done some favorites of old basics over the years. I'm a big retro old border foil basic lands person because I'm a wannabe Magic booner because I got into Magic slightly too late.
But so you're trying to artificially manufacture boomer opinions and boomer taste.
Yes. I'll have some opinions about pre-modern at some point, no doubt, just to fit in.
It's coming.
But yeah, a lot of his basics I'm a big fan of. I've met him in person a few times because he lives in the UK. and Axion, who are a UK tournament organizer. The person who owns Axion is a longtime friend of John Avon. So John would always come out to Axion events in the UK just to like hang out because the travel's easier because it's in England. And he would just do it as a favor to his longtime friend. So absolutely lovely guy. He's one of these artists that doesn't like, no matter how big the queue is, he will always like have a conversation with you and ask you questions and just make you feel like you're actually having a conversation instead of just getting a signature and just like disappearing. Very rare in this space, I find, and you could tell that he's just been doing it for a long time.
Yeah, I didn't think about the fact that it almost certainly was the easier for you to have met him than me, because he does not get over here very often.
It's very rare that he does.
Yeah.
For the health reasons he stated.
MagicCon Chicago and MagicCon Vegas last year, and those were, or maybe it was Minneapolis and Vegas or something like that. But that was a really big deal. I was very happy to, and it was crazy because since he never came over here and he was such an iconic artist, combined with kind of some of the limits that he had to like place on himself for his signings and stuff based on his health. It was like max of 3 cards per person. And then he also just had like very defined like time slots. And then he would take a 2-hour break and then come back and then take a 2-hour break. It was crazy. Like there just became like a defining factor of almost everyone's weekend was waiting in the really long John Avon line because you really wanted to get your unhinged island signed or whatever. Yeah. That's my favorite John Avon art, by the way.
Nice.
Which, like, I don't know if it's his best work, but it is beautiful and it is very specifically iconic in the history of the game. Along with, I mean, the rest of his unhinged lands in general.
I have another one, actually.
So, sure.
I'm a big fan of his island he did in Portal Second Age. Portal Second Age is a very underrated set for basics. It's the one which I think is either a jellyfish in the air or a hot air balloon. I haven't decided which. These are in my Dan deck. I've got a whole set for Dan, and they look so nice.
That's perfect.
Becoming a fan of Portal Second Age just leading into the wannabe boomer aesthetic, and a lot of those basics I feel are very underrated in general, and there's just some bangers, like John Avon's done some good ones.
I think it's one of those sets that a lot of people like don't really clock as existing at all. Oh yeah, this is a very fun island. It's a very fun island. He did all of the islands. How cute.
Yeah, they're really nice. Ross is also a fan of the islands he had from that set as well.
This is a very boomer taste island, Emma.
Why do you think I'm getting into these formats like Canadian Highlander and I'm on the Purple format panel? I'm trying to like get into an aesthetic here.
I guess PFP is, I guess Pauper is
boomerish. Not pre-modern boomer, not legacy boomer, but it's like within the mixture.
Yep. I feel like Dan is maybe technically a boomer format.
I agree.
I do have 2 John Avon islands in my boomer deck list. In my Dan deck list, not my boomer deck list. But I am not a boomer in that all of my islands in my Dan deck are individual printings. They do not match. And they're all just the islands that I like the most.
A mess.
So I do have both unstable and unhinged John Avons in there, and I'm pretty sure there's like a 3rd John Avon island in there somewhere, probably like the MPS player reward promo or something like that.
The planes I talked about at the start of this conversation, they are also in my Canadian Highlander deck, my mono white deck. But they are the Dominaria remaster printings because they were just much cheaper and easier to acquire in high quantities. At this point, I was playing mono white, which needed like 25 basics, because basics are great in Canlander. So I just have a pile of them because, you know, it's just a nice opportunity to pick those up again, slightly cheaper. And speaking of artists that haven't been around much lately, like Rebecca Gay is going to be at Vegas for the first time in an incredibly long time, and I'm envious that I'm missing that.
I know.
She's awesome.
It's time for me to get my foil predicts signed for my Dan deck. I can't wait to wait in that 5-year long line for that one.
I have so many cards in like Canlander and Commander that I own hers that I would love to get signed.
She has done a lot of iconic cards, and she also did another one of my favorite islands, the old Commander 2016. now promo, and they reprinted it in another set recently.
Ooh, yes, the original one. They like the original sort of like GP promo / ones that you got just for appearing at a Grand Prix.
Anyways, all of that to say, very sad to hear that another great of Magic is retiring, theoretically, temporarily, but I would not be surprised if he becomes more of a permanent thing. But he is just chilling out a little bit to focus on his health, physical and mental, and honestly, more power to him. I'm glad that he feels like he can do that.
Yes.
Feels like it could be a hard step to take, especially since he's been, doing it so consistently since 1996. That is, I'll say it again, longer than I've been alive. So,
I'm so old. Good Lord.
So hopefully John Avon will return to us, but hey, I hope he does not feel the need to. I hope he can take all the time that he needs in commercial art retirement. But, we are kind of losing a lot of the greats around the game at this point. They're not getting younger, especially even if you were a brand new fresh art student in the mid 1990s, now you're pushing 50 plus, which is, I assume, is when a lot of people start thinking about, all right, how much longer am I going to be doing this thing? When do I do something else? When do I try to retire? When do I start taking one piece a year instead of 10, when does that slowdown happen? I don't know. All right, let's go ahead and move on here on the Herald Torn. You know what we're going to talk about almost every week? It's big Magic the Gathering events, and it is almost time for Magic Spotlight Secret Lair. I think this is the most interesting Magic Spotlight prize they have had yet. Magic Spotlight Secret Lair is yet another really huge tournament. The winner will be taking home $10K. They will be playing Modern at SCGCon Indianapolis the weekend of May 30th through June 1st. I really wish that I could be there because Indianapolis, well, a bit of a drive. I mean, it's like a 2-hour drive, but that's still basically my stomping grounds. Historically, I've gotten to go out to all of these. Unfortunately, I'm not going out to this one. They are going to be playing 15 rounds of Swiss before cutting to a single elimination top 8. Like I said, first place takes home $10,000 and the special prize of consulting on a secret lair, which I think is really cool.
I think it's interesting. I think the demographics incorrect for the prize.
I would agree. I don't
think competitive players care about secret lairs.
No.
If so, they're probably going to do something really silly and reprint something really silly, or it's just going to be like, I think it would be cool if you could lock it based on the deck. So it's like, cool, I won a SCG in Indianapolis with, say, Eldrazi Ramp. It's a modern event. So let's say Eldrazi Ramp. And you get to pick 4 cards from your deck to Secret Lair Zeiss. So you can get you can Eye of the Storm, you can get Soin Mike and Spawn, maybe do like a cool Tron Lands thing.
Finally, just what we needed a new secret lair of. Corey Steelcutter.
I think that would be a cool way to do it. The problem is competitive players just don't care about that stuff because they didn't probably buy the cards, they probably borrowed them, and
I know. I really hope that the right person wins this, because I feel like, especially if a Magic Boomer wins this, they could do something really cool. Or, if someone with the right vision wins, then, but I assume that most people who will be participating because
people
it is a modern.
I will do a secret lair of all the cards that are currently banned in Modern. So I'll do Birthing Pod, Blazing Shore, Ponder stuff, and I'm going to buy them all. And if they get unbanned, I can flip that into profit or something.
Yeah, exactly. Realistically, most of the people in this event will be playing in this event because they'll be excited about what is basically a modern mini Grand Prix.
They just want the Pro Tour invite. They don't
Midwest.
care about the secret lair. It's a cool prize, though. I really wish they would do this at a Magic Con, because I think that's where the audience is for these kind of things. But also, you have no set to kind of market right now because Final Fantasy is next month, which has its own Magic Spotlight in Japan, which makes total sense. So yeah, they had to fill the gap somewhere.
They had to fill the gap somewhere. They said this is the exact language, part of many, but this is the relevant paragraph from the prize. Winner will provide creative feedback with Wizards of the Coast on card selections and their preferences for a future Secret Lair drop. Winner may suggest artists and creator themes. Wizards will share sketches and finals with winner for creative playback. Additionally, winner may, if desired, submit a thank you letter for inclusion in the SLD, which Wizards may modify. So it's like a cool concept. And it is also a lot of the winner may do this. It said that this says absolutely nothing about like, it's kind of the way that like the old invitationals used to work, which is like, we would love to take into consideration your idea for a Magic card.
It's like John Finkel had a card, which was basically like Supreme Verdicts, but it untapped your lands or something like that.
Yeah, it's really,
and it's now
really
distributed
egregious.
to instead. Like.
Yep. And they were like, we will not be doing that.
That is, here, have Shadow Mage Infiltrator instead. Okay, thanks. It's a very cool card. I have that exact copy in my cube, which is also a Boomer format.
Still cubable? Woo!
It's in Peasant.
It is in Emma's cube where she gets to make the cool decisions because she has taste.
It's very
Thoughts?
a lot of the cards are retro foil, so yeah, very Boomer.
So in addition to this prize, which I'm really excited about and I think is really cool, I mean, it's cooler than, well, I mean, maybe it's less cool than the Dragon's Horde from Dragon Storm, which was a case of collector boosters. Yeah. But it was very funny listening to Andrew Beckstrom talk about winning Spotlight Series Dragonstorm. He was talking about it on the canonical rival podcast of the show, according to Dan, Unsleeved, with Patrick Sullivan and now Patrick Chapin. But Patrick Chapin was traveling, so and it was very much just like Patrick Sullivan was just hanging out and watching. And like, you know, if you were never around for the olden days of GPs and SCGs, they started off with like so much fanfare because there's so many people in the room. The energy is so high. Everyone's energy is so high. We're all excited for the perspective, like what this weekend's going to be. And then you get to like the finals and they've been stretching on for a while and the hall is empty. The only people left in this room are Cedric Phillips and Patrick Sullivan commentating for their 10th hour of the day on this finals match. And then it's like the floor judge and Nick Miller and the two people who are in the finals. And they're on the only table that's still left up in the room. You have been hearing them tear down the room around them for the last hour.
That is a Sunday Magic event. Ever heard one?
Just listening to commentary and in the back, you just hear the big boom, boom. And you're like, what is that? And you're like, oh, they're taking down all of the tables in the world's most echoey room.
Fortunately, they didn't have to move it to like the hotel and then like the hotel cafe or like lobby or whatever, which has definitely happened before.
But Beckstrom was pretty much just like, yeah, I won the event. And then they like shoved these collector boosters into my arms and this one-of-one Ugin plushie. And also... because apparently there was a one-of-one Ugin plushie that they were so secretive about that they wouldn't even let coverage look at it. and BK was just like, I don't know how to get all this stuff out of here, because they just like shoved a bunch of stuff in his arms and was like, congrats, here's the trophy, here's a collector box, here's a collector booster case, you have to leave. Just like, so some of them help him carry it out. Anyways,
what a champ.
I know. The real prize, like you said, I think on the line here this weekend is that the top 8 of this tournament, in addition to making a decent chunk of change, especially like the top 2, they will be taking home a qualification for Pro Tour Atlanta in September. So, hey, good luck to all of the people out there who are trying to qualify for the PT.
Also Modern, which is historically a loved format. Modern Horizons 3 cards to one side.
Is it loved right now?
I mean, there's diversity if you can look past Boros Energy. I think there's like 5 decks I think you can probably play in Modern right now and do really well. Is it Prowess being one with Corey Steelcutter, Eldrazi Ramp, Boros Energy. The Charbelcher combos look really good as well. Also really good if you want to play Modern like affordably. It's like you can get a list, you can buy a deck for under $400, which is really cheap for Modern if you like that sort of combo strategy. And then it's like Domain, I think, is the other one that's fairly good right now. So there's like lots to play. Also, you have like the Blink deck as well, the also Blink deck with like Ketramos. Modern, historically, people tend to like watching a lot, you know. Now the standard RCQ is wrapping up. We had the Canadian RC this past weekend. And now the next the upcoming RCQ season is also Modern, so this is a nice segue into people knowing what to play in the format to get their RC invites.
Shout out to friend of the show, Steve Stillman, for qualifying for the Pro Tour. Final Fantasy.
So much
what format's
content.
that? Is it standard?
Yeah.
What's that? Okay.
It normally segues into the if I could be like remembering this wrong because it has changed a fair bit. I believe the RCQ format is also the Pro Tour format. So if it was a standard RCQ season going into a standard RC, it will be a standard Pro Tour. So I think Pro Tour Edge of Eternities is Modern on that alone because the next season's Modern. But I could also be wrong. It makes sense for it to be Modern because Worlds is usually standard. So that would be my HK guess.
And of course, we are exiting the calendar year 2025, I say, as we're not even halfway through it, without any major Pioneer events, from what I recall.
No. No. The Magic Spotlight event in Liverpool, England hasn't been announced yet. Like, the format hasn't been announced for it yet. So that's probably either going to be standard or Pioneer, because there was a Utrecht, Holland Magic Spotlight event not too long ago, which was Modern, if I remember correctly. So it makes no sense to do Modern twice when they're the only two European Spotlight events. So it's either going to be standard or it's either going to be Pioneer. They're also in a weird segue point. I think it starts the week after Avatar comes out, maybe. No, it doesn't. No, it doesn't. It's like the event's in October, so there's just like no releases in October, if I remember correctly. So there might be a Pioneer event in October. Who knows?
I guess we always have a window for those Spotlight series events. Well, I'll look forward to seeing how this event goes, and I really hope that whoever wins has a cool idea for Secret Lair. I that would make me really happy. I hope they really are into the prize, but I guess we'll see. All right, final news story here, and this is just a quick dumb one that I saw. So at Gencon 2023, I think this is like why this popped up on my radar. There was a really big story like the weekend of Gencon 2023. Someone like snuck into the convention hall the night before and stole almost $200,000 of Magic, Pokemon, Flesh and Blood, and Lorcana cards from Pastimes. They just like brought in a scissor jack and walked out with a pallet just full of stuff, which raised some questions about the show floor security level of Gen Con and all that kind of stuff, which has since been resolved apparently. And it was especially a big deal because Lorcana was like the big anticipated release of the weekend. They were doing a whole lot of like early release stuff of Lorcana at Gen Con that year. It was like people waiting in line all day on Thursday to have the chance to sniff a booster box type of vibe. And the two guys, apparently the accused, Thomas Dunbar and Andrew Giame, were caught. They had to return all this stuff. And finally filtering through the legal system, they were both charged with felony theft. And but one of the guys just took a plea deal, and he has to, rather than getting jail time, he's just on probation. He has to send $27,000 to Wizards of the Coast for some reason, which I don't get, unless like some of that product on Pastimes palette like technically belonged to Wizards of the Coast or something, or maybe some of it was like early product or whatever that this guy wasn't supposed to have. Who knows? But he also has to pay an undisclosed sum to the president of Pastimes.
Glad you said Pastimes there. I'm gonna be honest with you.
Yep. The president of the United States of America. If you want to read more about this dumb little story, I'll link the Indy Star article. The local Indianapolis paper is an Indy Star article about it. Who's reporting a read on it? I'll put that in the podcast description. All right. With all of that out of the way, I suppose it's time for us to move to our recurring segment. It's time for the Product Watch. The Product Watch is presented by Card Conduit. Hey, if you are looking to buy new Magic the Gathering cards, I know that you already have way too many Magic cards sitting around in your office. I sure know I do. Card Conduit makes it trivially easy to sell those cards while still getting paid top dollar, all without ever having to go to an event or anything like that. They take a look at all of the buy lists, handle all of the buy list selling so that you get the best buy list price for your cards. All you have to do is package them up and send them to them in the mail. They have a couple different tiers of service. There's like a completely unsorted one that comes with the highest fees, or you can do what I do, which is basically collate your own list of cards that are each worth at least 50 cents and then ship them off to them, and they have really low fees for that option. If you want to use the service, support the show, and also get a bit off of your fees, use the code HORN at checkout so they can know that we sent you. Thank you, Card Conduit, for sponsoring this episode of the Herald's Horn and this Product Watch. Welcome to the Product Watch, the part of the show where we talk about Magic the Gathering cards that are soon to be released, haven't been yet, but released, were just announced, were early teased, all of that fun kind of stuff. Let's talk a little bit more about Final Fantasy. We talked about it a ton last episode, but we are nearly to release. Pre-release weekend is June 6th. Go to your local game store, have a lot of fun playing in pre-release events. Pre-release events are far and away, I think, often the best thing about us getting new Magic sets. Go to your local game store, get to interact with some people, get to play with the new cards, have a fun little sealed event. What's so bad about sealed? Nothing. And then the proper set release itself is on June 13th. Emma, we're almost done with spoiler season. Spoiler season ends, Friday. I think we'll have ended by I was about to say, it ends Friday. So it'll almost be done when this releases on Thursday. And I think my main takeaway from this set, in addition to them, I think they've done a pretty good job of making a Final Fantasy Magic the Gathering set. That comes also with, man, there is a lot of legendary creatures in this set. I think that's the vibe I'm getting.
Welcome to Universes Beyond sets, especially when you try and put 16 mainland games squeezed into one set. There's always going to be an oversaturation of legends. Like, it's just the way Final Fantasy is. Like, each game is different. It doesn't really follow on, so it's not a surprise that there's going to be a lot of legends. Great for Commander players, but also just like in terms of just like covering and writing about these legends, it's going to be a pain. But I'm pretty sure we've already met our like criteria for most legends printed in 2025 compared to last year, just because Final Fantasy has like 100 of them, something like that.
They simply never, ever end. It never, ever ends.
And then you have the Marvel set in September, then there's an Avatar set in November, so that's just like, it's going to be a lot. The set looks great. I'm still waiting on an X-Death card, which is the antagonist from Final Fantasy V. But we'll see.
It has been interesting because like most of the characters that I like know and love is like, I have seen them, you know, like they're here. And so I've kind of just been like a little bit checked out and then checking back in to see if there's like anything like specifically CEDH Obnixilis playable or whatever, because that's one of the main decks I actively maintain. And that's about it. There's a bunch of deal 1 damage to each opponent, like Black Mage stuff going on, which is cool.
There is, and there's a lot of wizard tokens that deal damage as well. Is it like I believe Black Red is like the sacrifice archetype in Final Fantasy when it comes to limited, and I believe a lot of those cards make like wizard tokens that deal. I think they do like ping damage or do something, which is very interesting. I imagine for an Obnixilis pilot such as yourself.
Yes, exactly. And now I got to make a casual Obnixilis deck too, so I can just kill people with commander damage. Why not?
Games end quicker that way. It means you could play more Commander.
Exactly. I killed you. That just means the game's over. That just means we get to start again. What's so wrong about that, my guy?
Fine with me.
Exactly. But other than that, I mean, like, I think we've probably said about everything there is to say on this show about the Final Fantasy set. Unless you have some
Yeah,
more stuff to add, Emma. I don't
not
know.
really. Like,
I mean, I guess, like,
we're in that weird lull period because the previews
yeah.
aren't quite done yet, and like the previews for Final Fantasy are much longer compared to a traditional like release. Usually they're 2 weeks. This is like 3 weeks. So when these previews finish, we're going straight into pre-release week, which doesn't often happen when coverage happens for a Magic set. So like the set looks great. I'm really excited for it. Allocation looks a bit sketchy for the set, just based on what I've seen on Reddit. There's a lot of cancellations happening. Hopefully Wizards can fix that with the second print run. And yeah, just excited to build a couple of commanders from the set. It looks like a much more casual set than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be like the Modern Horizons, the standard, where like you push these powerful cards and you kind of gatekeep standard a little bit. But it looks like a lot of the cards are very casual and commander leaning, which is going to appeal to the competitive players because they don't have to play with the Universes Beyond cards, which I think is good. I think you can have like a smattering of cards that we'll see play, but it's not going to be concentrated, unlike compared to something like Modern Horizons 3.
It is very interesting to me that like it seems that they made such a smaller print run for such a set that it seems like they put a lot into like wanting to succeed, or maybe the print run is just small in the context of how much of a success the set ended up having. Like I can't, I don't know. I don't know which one
It's hard
it is.
to tell because we don't know how Wizards projects this stuff financially. But I wouldn't be surprised if we come into the end of next week when pre-release happens and when you can usually pick up sealed products. This is normally the window where you can start picking up sealed product for a set. I wouldn't be surprised if we start hearing horror stories of like they just had nothing in when I went to go to pre-release. Like there was nothing I could buy. There was no Commander precons. There was no nothing. And like I've heard stories of stores having to refund people because they just don't have enough pre-release kits to fill out all their sold out pre-releases, which really sucks. Like it's not ideal. These things do happen sometimes and it's not ideal. However, like Wizards are printing a second print run, so hopefully that will come sooner rather than later. Like the vibes of the set are immaculate. Like the people who worked on the set did their homework and knew what they were doing. There's been a lot of like cool references to stuff, and tying that to Magic design has been really fun to see.
Well, hopefully I'll be able to get to participate in my Final Fantasy pre-release, or else I'll be big sad. Just kidding. I'm traveling that weekend. I wish, man. But hey, what can you do? What can you do? Traveling for good things.
Oh, just be picking up singles like I do with every set.
I've seen people like kind of in the CDH sphere a little bit. A lot of people are really excited about Vivi, but his pre-order price just keeps going up and up and up and up and up. But
I would not look at pre-order prices. It's probably going to be one of the most expensive mythics in the set. Like that's going to be obvious, but it's not going to be that current price. Pre-sale prices are always super inflated. The best time to buy cards typically is release weekend or 2 months after. And Final Fantasy is going to be opened a lot, even with the allocation issue.
I think the kicker on that is that like I think a lot of people aren't anticipating how much it'll be opened, and then they are willing to pay the prices that people are charging for the pre-orders. And then even after all the allocation hubbubaloo goes down, it even does feel like a set where a lot of the value will be held up by insert X super crazy Sephiroth printing or whatever. And then a lot of the like actual playable cards hopefully will be cheaper.
What my theory, granted this is just a theory, I suspect a lot of the traditional printing, so non-foil, just your basic printings, will be priced reasonably fine. However, if these allocation issues are true, which is going to hit collector boxes because they have a much smaller print run compared to stuff like play boosters, stuff on Surge foils especially are going to be very expensive, and all like the collector booster exclusive treatments that you get, like the borderless Surge foil cards and stuff like that, are going to be crazy expensive in my opinion, just because people can't get the product, and like if people open them, they're going to sell them because they make really good price. Happened with Fallout. When Fallout Universes Beyond came out, a lot of the Surge foil treatments were expensive just because these were highly collectible. But we'll see.
Yes, indeed. Speaking of highly collectible, really cool cards that I want to buy, unfortunately, we just got 3 new Secret Lairs announced over yesterday, over the weekend. And unfortunately, they're all really cool, I think. All 3 of them feature reprints of pretty sick cards with some iconic artists on them. The first one up, I think the one that a lot of people will be the most excited for, is Artist Series Phil Foglio. Phil Foglio, one of the more iconic artists in Magic history, thanks to his very unique, goofy style. Did a lot of art early in Magic history, has done less so over the last 20 years or so. But something like a Secret Lair feels like the perfect spot for him to kind of get to show off funky stuff. We've got Constant Mists, which is itself a great reprint. A really silly Goblin Bombardment, a really silly Orcish Lumberjack, which I love very much, and also a Song of the Dryads, which I think is also a sneaky good reprint as well. Back in the day, that card used to be expensive. I don't know about anymore, but we also have featuring Amiri Sakabashira, which is not an artist that I'm familiar with, but their art is extremely cool. There's a Consecrated Sphinx, a Mirage Mirror, a Resculpt, and a Scion and Draco. Unfortunately, these do suffer from the debilitating illness of they don't look like a Magic card, which people everywhere dislike, but the art itself is super sick, and they're like, it's like close to looking like a Magic card. At least like the name and the cost are in the right spots on the card, right? And the rules text is like kind of normal.
Let's put it that way. It's an improvement. We're getting there. We're slowly coming full circle. We're doing it.
Well, I'm surprised that we got like 2 very real Magic card Secret Lairs, because like all of the Phil Foglio ones are just Magic cards with different art. And then our final one here as well, the art of Frank Frazetta, the second exhibition. Man, talk about iconic fantasy artists. Frank Frazetta, we get 5 borderless cards. None of these are a huge deal for reprints, but they all look extremely sick. Aggravated Assault, Deadly Dispute, Desperate Ritual, Murderous Rider, and Zulaport Cutthroat. So, I mean, I guess your average kind of aggressive Rakdos commander player is really happy right now.
You say that. So when the first Frank Frazetta Secret Lair came out, everyone was just like, whatever. And then Dark Rituals. The Dark Rituals like one of the most expensive Secret Lair non-bonus cards.
It's like $100. It's like $100 and change, right?
And everyone's just like, it's Dark Ritual, but the art is sick. And it's like a lot of people will pay to own that card to play it in like CDH and Commander. So I wouldn't be surprised if like the Zulaport Cutthroat in that is just worth something.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Just because it's Frank Frazetta.
I was poking around the other contents of that as well. Like the Dark Ritual is extremely expensive. I was like looking at art on Scryfall that was associated to Frank Frazetta, and I was like, okay, this is so outsized in cost that I have to assume that this is like from a Secret Lair like prize event or something. But no, it was just in the box.
Yeah. It's a card that I've written a fair bit about just because it's like a valuable Secret Lair card. And you wouldn't expect it because Dark Ritual has like 24 printings by this point. But it's a cool guy with the skull head going like this. Like what could you want? That's very Dark Ritual.
His art is very like iconic early fantasy, very dark, very shadow, very high contrast, very cool stuff. And even looking at the rest of the cards from that, even like if you look at Midnight Reaper, right? That is a card that you can have for $0.25. If you want the Frank Frazetta one, it'll run you 16, 17, $18. There's a Lightning Strike. That card there are printings of Lightning Strike that are like not worth the paper they're printed on the Frank Frazetta Secret Lair Lightning Strike is $10, right? So it's like obviously something very in demand here, which is super cool. This is probably the first Secret Lair that I am going to try to personally buy in a very long time. Just because I love the art so much. I love all of the art on all of these, honestly. I just wish I had more of a reason to play cards like Orcish Lumberjack these days, because
I am a little disappointed there wasn't a recycle reprint. It might be on the reserve list though. It feels like one of those kind of... I'm a big recycle fan. I played it a lot in Commander once upon a time, and I just love the goofy art. It's so good.
It is, unfortunately, I just looked it up. It is part of the reserve list, and yet it is still only about $4.
Card's really fun in Commander.
4 green enchantment. Skip your draw step. Whenever you play a card, draw a card during your discard phase, choose and discard all but 2 cards. Or what it would skip your draw step. Whenever you play a card, draw a card. Your maximum hand size is 2, I guess, is the current text. It is very funny art. Visual watchers. There you go. You can see it. Everyone else, you have to look it up on your own time. Yeah, getting like a reprint would have been cool. It would have been really cool to see a Phil Fogley.
I'm also happy for Constant Miss as a fellow Anzarak the Quake Mole player. Constant Miss is a very important card in the deck, so I've held off getting one because like the only printing that exists is quite expensive. So I suspect this one's going to be pricey because this is like the first foil printing you can get of the card. So I'm definitely going to pick one of those up.
Yep. And it'll be interesting for me to see like if any of these kind of end up with any outsized value either, because he does just like have some cards that are kind of worth money just because of the sake that he did the art. Like his Double Masters Chaos Warp. A Chaos Warp, $1. His Chaos Warp, $5.
Yeah.
You know, it's not a huge difference, but it is a difference.
It reminds people of a time where Magic was less serious in its art.
Yeah.
It was like,
it's like
had more creative freedom and could do like silly things, which is now reserved for Secret Lairs. And, like,
exactly. It is like a combination of, it is a very specific combination of like silly while still being like grounded within Magic cards. Like, even though he is maybe one of the silliest artists that has ever worked for Magic, all of his art are on cards that are in the Magic frame. It's not like it's all buku crazy stuff. So it like melds the sensibilities. Yeah,
it feels like anytime I see his art in a Magic art, it feels like he's taking like a slide from a comic book. And I'm expecting them to piece all together because it's just that style is very distinct and it feels like it tells a story.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. I wish they did more art. They are just fun. I get why they don't get as many commissions from Magic anymore, but I hope that in this new era of Secret Lairs and borderless printings where aesthetic matching doesn't matter all that much and all that kind of stuff, we can continue. Like it's led to like a big resurgence of some artists like Drew Tucker doing a lot of work for the game. Yes. I hope that eventually we can get a lot more work from the likes of the Foglios as well. Well, Emma, I think that is all we have time for here on this Heralds of... Well, on this Heralds.
Sorry.
Maybe I should have had a cider. Well, I think that is all we have for this episode of the Herald's Horn, Emma. But as always, before we go, is there anything else that you would like to leave our listeners with?
Not really. Nothing comes to mind. Maybe go out and find some ducklings. Because I felt pretty good seeing those ducklings earlier today.
Yeah.
You should go and find out some ducks and give them not bread. Bread
the balm to all wounds is seeing ducklings in a small river near your home. Yeah. That would fix me, I think.
It did a lot for me today. It really helped.
Very nice. You know. Very nice, very nice.
What about you? Do you have anything to say?
I'm not supposed to give anyone any final thoughts, Emma. That's not my bit.
You're the host.
Everyone, thank you very much for watching the show, enjoying the show when we took a little bit of a break. And now that we're back to every other week, I've gotten some nice messages from people telling me how much they like it. You would not believe how much that helps out, because right now the energy level is kind of low. So I appreciate everyone who likes the show. I appreciate Emma, appreciate Dan, appreciate Lexi, everyone else involved with making it, supporting, all that kind of stuff. Thank you so much for listening. We will see you in 2 weeks. Bye-bye.